Thank you, Nick, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this year's UK Internet Governance Forum. My name is Ellie Bradley, and I'm Managing Director of the Registry Business at Nominet. I also have responsibility for our public benefit activity. Nominet is the UK's national domain registry, and creating and maintaining a healthy digital society is part of our mission. And I'd like, first of all, to frame our conversation today about the healthy digital society. We're all in this room because we believe we're real champions of the multi-stakeholder model. A former government minister recognised the importance of this approach in addressing the challenges posed by developing and applying approaches to shaping the evolution and use of the internet when he spoke at a previous UK IGF. He said something as complex as the internet can't be governed from the top down. It has to be a bottom-up model, and it has to be a model that brings together a wide variety of stakeholders. And that's why we're here today, and it's why we invite so many different technology tribes to contribute their views. Today, we're joined by experts on data and its governance, digital inclusion, and the security, safety, and resilience of the online world. We'll hear a range of perspectives, and I'm sure be challenged in our thinking by those on stage, as well as you in the room and those participating remotely. Now, in preparing for today, I was trying to get my head around what 2050 will look like. It's obviously 30 years from now, and I'm clearly old enough to remember 30 years ago, when we lived in a primitive society. We had clunky plastic telephones that you had to sit next to, a small fat TV that gathered dust in the living room. And if you wanted to find a rare book, it could take weeks, months, or even years to track it down. 30 years later, we have miraculous change. And almost all of that change is positive. We can find most books in print in a matter of seconds. We can see family members from around the world on our screens, and we can work from home. By 2050, and on our journey towards it, there will of course be problems that we can't foresee, but surely many more positive innovations. With any luck, we'll be looking back at a primitive era ourselves, when people sat in traffic jams, worked 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, had only 10-minute appointments at the doctor's surgery, were fooled by disinformation and phishing scams, and we hadn't yet learnt to manage cyberbullying. And the open internet and internet privacy were not yet balanced in perfect harmony. And of course, that's what we're talking about today, a healthy digital society in 2050. What changes are going to be required to ensure that this is a reality? What is it going to mean for those currently offline, or for the millions of people in the UK without the necessary digital skills for life and work? And what will it mean for our safety and privacy? Already, children are pitched into the digital world almost from birth, with the digital and physical worlds intertwined and equally real. We know that at 1, many toddlers have mastered the gesture of sliding an index finger across a screen, and by the age of 5, they're totally immersed in this world. And they can learn in it, create in it, and be stimulated by it. But sorting out the internet for 2050 means focusing on the children of today and tomorrow. And the income of those children's parents should not determine their ability to get their hands on the best the internet has to offer. At Nominet, we're a founding partner of the Digital Access for All initiative. We want to address the nearly 1 million young people in the UK who don't have access to an adequate device and internet connection to do their homework at home. But we all know there's not a level playing field. It's not level globally or nationally. And of course, the task is much bigger than that. At Nominet, we see our role to support healthy, inquisitive digital citizens. It's about creating a society where our children grow up knowing how to be safe, considerate, and savvy online. We're working with the Scouts on a citizenship badge and with the Samaritans to support their efforts to ensure their vital digital service reaches younger people who are least likely to pick up the phone when they're at their most vulnerable. But returning to the 1-year-olds who think all screens are touch responsive, there are, of course, some who say Steve Jobs has a lot to answer for, but he did foresee some of the dangers in this new world. He said that he was inspired by Bob Dylan as a symbol of the counterculture, but many of his instincts were conservative. His biography describes how he got into an email exchange in 2010 with a Silicon Valley journalist who didn't like the way he controlled apps on the iPhone. The journalist asked him, if Dylan was 20 today, how would he feel about your company? Would he think the iPad had the faintest thing to do with revolution? Revolutions are about freedom. To which Jobs replied, yep, freedom from programs that steal your private data, freedom from programs that trash your battery, freedom from porn, yep, freedom. And of course it sounds familiar because these are the issues that we've been wrestling with since this forum opened in 2007. Do we regulate, self-regulate, or deregulate? Now, Steve Jobs wanted to govern the iPhone space, but understandably, for our government, the devil is in the detail. Even in the chaos of Brexit, the government has remained committed to tackling the online harms agenda. But last week, of course, the compulsory age verification for adult content was moved into the broader discussions on online harms. And of course, this has come as a disappointment to many. Now, my eldest son becomes a teenager tomorrow, and I'm incredibly pleased he has access to ideas, technology, and information that his parents could only have dreamed of. But I also recognise he has a past to be exposed to extreme views, be in contact with undesirable characters, as well as opportunities to gamble and obtain illegal substances, and opportunities to view disturbing content. Now, these issues are not new, but they are amplified. So at Nominet, we see internet safety as a bit like road safety. There are, of course, dangers, but they can be managed. And we can use conferences like today as a platform to facilitate a common UK position and then broadcast that position globally. Digital society can, of course, do so much to promote a broader, flourishing society. Online banking, cheaper utility bills, access to better deals on hotels are, of course, wonderful things, but we need to raise our sights higher and hope that the digital society of 2050 can be credited with being part of the solution to some of the biggest and most pressing issues we face today, like climate change. Our forum has been meeting since 2007, and every year the debate has been advanced. Our thinking has evolved, and concerns have arisen that have merited further discussion. And of course, matters arising today will be taken forward to the global UN IGF in Berlin next month. Now, to underline this notion of steady progress, I'd like to just reference some of the positive suggestions that came out of last year's conference. I think we can capitalise on these and really consider these in terms of our discussions today. Firstly, we said we don't want to be internet doomsayers. We need to be internet evangelists. Just looking back 30 years, we can see how human potential has been transformed. So what do the next 30 years have in store? Secondly, how do we build security or safety in from the outset, the Steve Jobs model, or safety by design, rather than needing to keep sticking plasters over issues after the event? But if we do that, what's the framework that balances innovation with the protection of citizens? Thirdly, how do we balance multilateral and multi-stakeholder approaches, particularly when so many key decisions are made in the boardroom rather than through informed debate? Fourthly, we said artificial intelligence, algorithmic decision-making, and big data mean we're becoming a digital society governance forum, not just an internet governance forum. How do we manage this and make sure that our debate has the necessary breadth? Lastly, last year, some of you said we needed to talk about Brexit. Our place in the European Union was a hot potato 30 years ago, and it probably still will be in 30 years' time, and I suspect there's little that any of us here today can do about that. But where we can affect change is as participants in the digital society, where we all have rights and responsibilities. When it comes to online harms, there are, of course, many grey areas and key decisions to be taken. There are things that are harmful to different people in different ways, and, of course, things that are illegal. The former requires more judgment and finesse to get it right, and the role and responsibilities of each part of the ecosystem needs to be tightly defined. The technology guru Neil Postman put it like this: it's a delusion to believe that the technological changes of our era have rendered irrelevant the wisdom of the ages and sages. Now, we welcome all contributions today, especially from those of you attending your first IGF. Thank you.